Oh, am I opening, Paul?
No, StreamYard is having issues.
Okay, it's showing live on my side, but
Yeah. All right. Okay, so yeah, StreamYard is showing Microsoft and Google and saving the world. All right, so welcome to this episode of today's podcast, and we're going to talk about content strategies for 2024 and what you probably should be aware of or what you need to know. And Ken can't join us today. I'm joined by Ian. So let's get started. Ian, it's not like brand new. It's fairly new, and a lot of people probably haven't heard of it. Is Google Perspectives, and I think this is going to become more important moving forward when creating content. So, can you talk about that a little bit?
sure. Yeah, I mean, Google's definitely made this, part of the foundational elements of SEO moving forward. And what it is if I were to encapsulate, everything I know about Google Perspectives, it's really that Google wants to reward websites that offer a unique point of view. And so they're calling it perspectives. What's interesting about this is nowhere that I've read from the available information about how this will affect rankings is that I couldn't find anything related to, does it matter if it's a legitimate point of view, a factual point of view, or is it just a unique point of view that Google's looking for? And obviously, just like with a lot of the way Google works now, popularity of content will play a big part in the success of you positioning yourself with your unique point of view. So what I mean by that is that Google looks at all of the analytics when people come to your website. When you show up for a search engine ranking result, somebody clicks on it, they come to your website. Google's aware of what happens to the visitors that come to your website. And through that information, Google decides, should we continue to send traffic to this website? And so the reason I mention that is that as Google rolls out this perspectives or this point of view update, it's going to become more important to, first of all, make sure that you have an author page or multiple author pages on your website related to people with that perspective, with that point of view. You want to make sure that on those pages, you're outlining, what makes you an authority and a valuable person sharing their point of view. And then, of course, anytime you post blog articles, content with your point of view in it, which you should now be doing, whether it's controversial or non-controversial, you should be including in there your author bio, a short version of that with a link to the broader author page. But I think it's an interesting development. I think it's interesting in that Google's really focusing more on the person that's presenting the information, and this will grow over time. But it's still vital that you're sharing valuable information that people are searching for. This does not displace the need for that or the value of that. What do you think, Paul? Did I cover that, or is there anything else that you would add to that?
No, I think it matters if Google thinks it's factual, not whether or not it actually is factual. Google is focused on
that's what worries me.
Google is focused on their lawsuits right now. As we speak, there's like 2 or 3 lawsuits against them because they do no evil.
Well, let me ask you a question, Paul. We've talked about this topic a lot in the past because, again, this is guidance from Google about how you as a business can help your website rank better. And they've used the framework of the acronym of EAT. So EEAT, experience, expertise, authority, and trust. Why is this so important, and how does someone establish EEAT in the eyes of Google?
Well, because it has to be at the core of your content strategy, because in spite of the comments I make about Google and Facebook, it's Google wants to give they want to give users the best search results, and they use this. It's part of their algorithm that, based on the content of your website, the structure of your website, interlinking all those SEO things, backlinks, Google determines whether or not, their algorithm determines whether or not that you are an authority in that space or on that topic, and experience is something that has been recently added. And your content sends signals to Google. And when you think about it, the content you create, when we think about content, a lot of times we think about like blog posts, but content is videos on YouTube, Facebook, social media, yes, your web pages and your blog posts, but this is all content. And Google does look at the content that you have outside of Google search, or outside of your website, and they use all of these signals to determine your expertise and authority and trust. And this is where citations come into play, because people don't think about this, but if you have inconsistent citations, that sends a signal to Google that maybe you're not that trustworthy. And
for our listeners, Paul, just define what a citation is.
Well, there's, I guess one way to look at it, there's all these data aggregators out there. But when you go, let's say that your address on your Google business profile is different than your address on your website, that's a really bad signal to be sending to Google. And if your opening hours are wrong, let's say you have on your Google business profile, your operating hours are incorrect, and someone shows up when they see on your Google business profile you're supposed to be open at these certain times, and they show up and you're closed. That's a bad experience. That's a good, if you want to get bad reviews, that's a good way to do it, because that's exactly what's going to happen. And that sends a signal to Google that you're not that trustworthy, or you just don't care. And why should they show your rankings? Why should they rank you all that well? So when we talk about experience, expertise, authority, and trust, it's part of their algorithm that is, it's not just one thing. It is part of their ranking algorithm, and all those four things all work together, and it can absolutely affect your rankings. And a lot of that, like I said, a lot of that comes from the content that you produce.
Yeah, just when you were talking about the signals that send to Google, on these author pages, when you're creating an author page that I talked about on the question I was answering for you, Paul, the thing to remember too is that you can send additional, so you should be talking about your experience, your expertise, your authority, and including trust elements even on your author page. But you can also interlink other websites and sources that support your expertise and authority also within that author page. So you could link back to your LinkedIn profile, right, which has your full experience in there. You could link back to, or you could link in, video podcasts that you've been on with other people, awards that you've won, social proof, of course, reviews, other people saying how great and authoritative you are, obviously are great signals for Google.
Yeah, and the other thing about is, and you see this a lot of times with small businesses that they don't have a big staff, is that they take forever to respond to customer inquiries, or sometimes they just flat out don't respond. And the prospect doesn't know why maybe you're just overwhelmed, but they don't know that, and that's going to wind up giving you a bad review.
Yeah.
And that goes back to people not, or Google not trusting your business, which is going to affect your rankings. And like I said, nothing exists in a silo anymore. Everything works together, and I think that's really important to remember. And all those things working together is what helps Google determine where you land on this expertise, experience, authority, and trust.
Yeah. And one thing you said in your response, you said that Google tries to send people to the best results. Can you explain to our listeners why Google actually cares to give the best results, and why it tries to do that?
Well, because they make their money off Google Ads, but if they're not giving people the best results, there are search engines out there. We talk about search engines. We tend to focus on Google because that's like 80% of search traffic. Or search queries are done on Google, but there are other search engines out there, and if Google doesn't return part of the reason Google is the biggest is because they do return the best results. And if they don't do that, people are going to go somewhere else.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I just thought it would be valuable. I throw that out when I'm speaking with a lot of clients and prospects and educating people, because I think it's important to know, right, that there is this aspect that Google really is trying to provide the very best result. And as a business, you can leverage that by providing the very best result.
Yes, yes, and we've talked in previous episodes about content and the importance of content, and this day and age, it still astounds me that how many small businesses that, even with everything that's happened with COVID, and we talked a while back about how competition has increased, and you and me were talking about how advertising in general, but we were talking about Google Ads, about how the cost has just increased by what, 30%, something like that. And
Sometimes more, depending on your industry.
yeah, sometimes more. And it still amazes me how many small businesses just don't think that they need to be doing anything from a digital perspective. And if you're not, and your competition is, you're just, we said it before, you're never standing still. You're moving forward or moving backward. And if your competition is doing something and you're not, you might find yourself in a position where you just can't catch up.
Yeah, and at the very least, you're leaving an awful lot of money on the table for your competitors versus trying to capture that yourself.
Yeah, definitely. So, speaking of content, we've talked a lot about it, but what kinds of content do small businesses need to create, and how would they determine what kind of content they need to be creating? Because there's all these different platforms out there, and we've touched on in the past that some platforms aren't a good fit for some industries.
Yeah, I think that's a really key point that you bring up to start with is I mean, we're talking specifically about Google and perspectives and SEO today, but from just what you're saying, if you take a step back and you say, as a business, where are we going to get the lion's share of our preferred ideal clients or customers from? what platforms are they spending time on, then that helps guide your content creation, because you obviously want to be creating content on those, specifically for those platforms, where your ideal clients, customers, patients are hanging out, spending time digesting content. And the platform, so I'll get back to SEO in a second, but this falls mostly under social media, right? Because the places people spend a lot of time on is YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, for some demographics, Pinterest. And it's on those platforms where they have their own style, their own formats, their own type of content that's easily digested and that people on those platforms are looking for. So TikTok's the easiest one to go to to talk about, because they really popularized the short video style, right? Where you're trying to get something across, usually entertaining, could be educational, could be impactful. You're trying to get a big idea across to people, but you're trying to do it in a very short amount of time. And that's a popular form of content if you want to reach people on that platform. Does it bleed into other content types on other platforms? Absolutely, because other platforms have mimicked the popularity of that style or that type of content on their own platforms. So you see it on YouTube, there's YouTube Shorts. On Instagram, there's Instagram Reels. Facebook has it. Everybody has it. So you can repurpose that type of content across multiple platforms. When we're talking about SEO, though, the key point here is that the best kind of content that performs really, really well is still long form content, right? If you post a short TikTok video on your website, it can help your rankings, but not in the same way that an exhaustive blog on a very particular topic that people are searching for. You're trying to, again, you talked about creating signals for Google. You as a business are trying to create signals for Google on a particular topic. So as an example, if you're a dentist and you want to attract more dental implant clients because it's a very high revenue source of income, it's something you're really good at, you want more patients like that, then yes, you need to have your dental implants page that talks about the service, but then you need long form content that meets the needs of people searching for very specific topics related to dental implants. It might be, what is the dental implant procedure? How does it work? On that long form content page or blog post, you also want to include rich media content like video, because again, you're sending signals back to Google, one of its other powerful platforms, which is YouTube, right? So there's lots of strategies to do that, but it's really important to understand what is the intent of the searcher. And this is where strategy comes into play in SEO keyword research, but create a content marketing plan, determine what platforms you're going to focus on. Again, you should never be overlooking your own platform, which you own on the internet, which is your website. And that's where blogs can come in. Learn what type of content works best for your goals. So what actually helps people be informed in their discovery phase, and taking it back to the framework of the marketing hourglass, where it's, know, like, trust, try, buy, repeat, refer. So in all of that buyer's journey through the marketing hourglass, people have different needs or different intents for looking for information, and you can create content to help guide them through that process. Not only does it meet their need, you can actually motivate them to move through those stages in a more powerful way by giving them what they know they need, or that they are inherently looking for at that stage. You need to post regularly. You need to monitor the results. This is where Google Analytics and some other tools can be really powerful, because you can see what are people digesting on my website, or look at the analytics on other platforms. And for SEO, you need to continue to create and optimize this long form content along with other content types that people are looking for, like videos, podcasts, audiograms. And remember that Google is now recommending including that unique perspective that we're talking about today and featuring the author of that unique perspective. And that's going to help you rank better and get more bang for your investment. Any other content types that you can think of, Paul, worth sharing?
No, not really. It's just we're going to talk about content throughout this podcast, but
Yeah,
it's just keep it. There are different platforms out there, and
yeah,
I think you can't just create a piece of content and throw it out there,
yeah,
and hope that it's going to help you.
yeah. It's always fun to pull movie quotes into conversations with clients and prospects, and the one from Why Isn't It Coming to Me? If you leave it, they will come. Field of Dreams. That's not true when it comes to content creation. You need to have a strategy for not only building it, but also attracting people. It's not as easy as building, this mythical baseball diamond and then just magically people start showing up.
Well, it's not true for Hollywood either. Otherwise, they wouldn't have to do a movie about it.
That's right. Well, Paul, I talked a bit about content. There's been a lot of talk about platform specific content. What can you tell us about that? And what is it? What are the nuances related to it? And help our audience understand this concept.
Yeah, this one's kind of, it's simple and it's not. It basically, when we talk about native content or platform specific content, it's developing content for each different type of platform. So obviously, overly simplistic way to look at it is the content for YouTube is going to be different than the content for Pinterest. Okay, obviously.
Yeah.
But when you look at YouTube and Facebook, you do have video content on Facebook, but the way people engage on those two platforms is different. And so when you're developing content, you need to think about that. And this is something that really started becoming important with omni-channel marketing, because if you remember a while back, it was pretty much your website and the big social media channels like Facebook and YouTube. But now there's 50 million different platforms out there, and this goes back to what you talked about, that you need to find out where your audience is, because if your audience isn't on LinkedIn, then don't spend a lot of time and money on LinkedIn. Hey, definitely you need to have a presence there, but if your target audience isn't there, and then don't spend a lot of time and money. Spend your time and money where your target audience tends to be. So I guess where I'm going with this is that the audiences on these different platforms have different expectations.
Yeah.
And that's what's important to understand. So when you're creating content for these different platforms, you need to do a little research, or work with a marketing agency that has done the research on this, and create content for the different platforms. Now, if you have a how-to video, I don't know how well that's going to work on Facebook, but how-to videos are one of the most searched for videos on YouTube. So you might not want to put your how-to video on Facebook. But if you have some kind of social awareness thing that your business is involved in, that Facebook might be a good place for that. And that may, that has indirect SEO implications because it's sending signals to Google, but people probably aren't going to be looking for that on YouTube. But again, YouTube is intent oriented, where Facebook is what we call disruptive advertising, if you will. In that, when someone goes to YouTube or someone goes to Google, they're searching for something specifically. When people are on Facebook, they basically turn their brain off and they're just scrolling through their feed. And if you're advertising on Facebook, you're interrupting them. That's what's called disruptive advertising. But that might be the best platform for some kind of social awareness event or whatever it is that you are involved in. Whereas people aren't going to go to YouTube to look for that.
Excuse me. You broached this topic, but you didn't really go down the path. So I want to expand this a bit for our listeners, Paul. You talked a little bit about native content, that it's valuable, but why? So let me set the table a little bit more. So in the past, recent past, like 3 to 4 years ago, we used to create video content for ourselves and for our clients. And we used to take that video content, post it on YouTube, and then post it across our website, Facebook, other social media channels. But something changed that really was trying to force us to use native content and upload that video directly to a platform like Facebook or something like that. And talk a little bit more about that and how that, maybe if you know why that happened, but also why that's important, an important distinction for businesses to understand so that they can get more eyeballs, or I guess the effect would be important to discuss, and then why that's important as well.
Yeah, I think these are kind of two different things. Native content in the aspect that I was talking about it is creating content for the specific platforms. Okay.
Yeah.
I think what you're talking about, and this is really more of a Facebook thing, because if you're going to upload a video to YouTube, you're going to upload a video to YouTube. Yes, you should
Sure.
embed it on your website, and you should probably transcribe it because that helps Google understand what that video is about. I think what you're talking about, it's really more of a Facebook thing where you can embed a video on Facebook, but you can also upload your video to Facebook. And Facebook, I think it's clear how I feel about Facebook, but they will give more weight to your video if you upload it directly to Facebook than if you embed that video. So let's say you upload it to YouTube and then you embed that video on Facebook. Facebook's going to give that less weight than if you upload it natively. So that's really a Facebook algorithm thing. And it's just how Facebook operates there. I won't go further than that.
It's almost it's almost like Facebook's giving priority to content that resides on its own platform versus embedding or linking to content on another platform, which in some sense makes sense, right? But in other in other ways, it just creates more workload for the business. But okay. And so if I'm to understand this right, Paul, if you embed or if you bring the content directly into Facebook, let's keep going with the Facebook one, because a lot of businesses are on Facebook. So if you were to embed a YouTube video, just to make it easy for yourself, because you're posting it on YouTube and your website anyways, and you were to embed it on Facebook versus uploading the raw MP4 file directly into Facebook so that it resides within the Facebook platform, Facebook gives it a higher priority in the latter case if it resides on their own platform. Is that correct?
Yes, and look, make no mistake, Facebook has become pay to play. All right. It's just the way it is that you
For businesses.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
So, it used to be that you could just post on Facebook. You could even maybe just boost a post, and you get some traction from that. That's just not the case anymore. Y- You know, you, you if you're not paying to advertise on Facebook, your reach is almost non-existent.
Yeah.
And that's we were talking before the podcast. That's one of the lawsuits against Google is that they have evidence that paid advertising on Google Ads actually helps your organic rankings, and Google has for years denied that. And
But we in the
now
business have always known there was fire to that smoke.
there's been anecdotal evidence, but
Yep.
now DOJ claims that they have proof that yes, Google, if you pay to advertise on Google, that actually does help your organic rankings, which is completely against the so-called Google model of do no harm.
But if I can just add a comment about that, one of the interesting nuances of that whole issue is that Google would have to ignore all paid traffic going to a website to not have it impact your organic rankings, meaning the Google algorithm values the number of people coming to your website and what they do on your website. And obviously, if you're paying to have people come to your website, you have a greater audience. You have more data about what people are consuming and how they're consuming it. So, like, that's why it's all for us in the business. It's always made absolute sense that where we see that smoke, we see there being some impact, but not being able to quantify it. But it's just always made sense, even from that standpoint, because Google would have to, in their organic algorithm, ignore all of the data related to paid traffic. And why would they do that? Because we as marketers look at both sides of it and go, okay, people are consuming for all of the advertising we're doing. People like the way we say this in our ads. So it resonates with them, or they consume these videos, or once they, the top ranking or the top performing ads are related to this content. So that drives our SEO efforts as well. So I don't understand kind of the naivety that, well, of course there would be no impact, right? Like, it just has never made sense to me, that argument. But
Well, Google has always claimed that
right.
paid traffic from paid advertising does not influence your organic rankings.
I know.
And
But it doesn't
DOJ
make
is
sense.
and well, and I think that's the point, is that DOJ is saying yes, it does. And if you're going to separate the two, then you need to separate the two. So I understand what you're saying, but that's a very nuanced kind of argument, because if someone chooses to not pay for Google ads, why should someone that is paying for Google ads rank better organically because they're paying for Google ads? And I think that's the argument that DOJ is making.
And the interesting part about that argument too is that we pretend, or maybe Google's pretended, or maybe all the search engines have pretended, that organic ranking it's like a public service. We've all known that these are corporations that can't be free. So something, there's all sorts of paid elements in the background. But the interesting thing is it because they've broken this altruistic trust that they've tried to breed in the marketplace? Or why is this even a big deal in some ways? Maybe it's just because I've been in the industry so long, like you, Paul, that it doesn't surprise me, so I'm not shocked. I'm just like, well, it's about time.
None of these things surprise me when it comes to any of these, but maybe it could be, I'll let DOJ hash it out, but it could be
Sure.
that it could have something to do with the way their business model is structured from a legal standpoint.
Right.
If they're claiming from a legal perspective that paid advertising doesn't influence your organic results, and it does, how these attorneys are. I mean, it's they phrase things in a way that to get an answer that proves their point. Oh, that's politicians.
Sure. I guess I'm just surprised that it's even in the conversation, because these are for-profit businesses. They're not charities. Do you know what I mean? They're
Right.
not they're not government entities.
Right.
They
But
are
in my
for-profit
understanding,
businesses.
this is just one small part of the overall lawsuit
Yeah,
that has
of
been
course.
filed
Yep.
against them.
And it may support another argument that they're going after as far as trust.
Right. Right. So yeah,
Yep.
that's like I said, it's my understanding that's just one small part of it. But I do think, like I said, it doesn't surprise me, but I
Yep.
do think it's important because if like I said, if Google is going to make the claim that paid advertising doesn't affect your organic rankings, but it actually does, so a business that chooses to not advertise is basically being penalized organically, I think that's a problem,
But
or at least they need to
I
be
can't
honest
sue
about it.
Google over it
What's that?
as a business. Like, how
Yeah.
can I sue Google over that?
Yeah.
How is it going to
you
help me
can.
actually as a small business? Is any of this going to help me? Probably not. I should be advertising. The bottom line is that I should be advertising on Google as well as focusing on SEO, which is always the message we've been sharing with people, right?
True.
Nothing's changed.
So going back to content,
Yeah.
I mean, content, it's not inexpensive to create content. So how can a business future proof their content strategy?
Yeah, I think focusing on the EEAT formula combined with perspectives is really important for the business. So first of all, have a plan, right? Know what your objectives are. That's what plans are for. You create objectives, you create a strategic plan in order to help you achieve those objectives, and then you measure what are the results. And that's at its basic what businesses should be doing to create content and to future proof themselves. And obviously staying on the cutting edge, being aware of what Google and other search engines are saying, being aware, excuse me, being aware of new emerging technologies like AI and how that can help you with your content creation, but being cautious about how you use it, because it's not a magic bullet. It's not always true. We've covered that before. But understand, again, the whole purpose of investing in content marketing is because the people you're trying to reach consume it, right? There's no, if nobody's searching for your product or service, who cares about SEO? The point is, there are people searching for your products and services. And so, in order to help your business get more traffic, show up higher on search rankings, get more leads, qualified leads, because they're investing time and energy into reading your content or digesting your content if it's video or audio, that is going to help you, first of all, attract, but also engage and nurture and ultimately land new clients, customers, or patients. So it's important to understand why you would even go down this path. Like, don't just don't just say, I should be doing content marketing because the marketing guides say so. Yes, we are very knowledgeable, but you have to understand the point of it is to help you and help your clients or customers or prospective customers. And it's to help them through their journey to make the best decision possible when hiring a service provider for what you provide. Other things you should, so understanding the intent also. I talked about the marketing hourglass framework and how that combined with understanding the buyer's journey can be a very powerful framework, because the user intent, the intent of what they're looking for at different stages differs. Meaning, when somebody, say somebody needs employee benefits to be a more competitive employer, how are they going to, if they've never done employee benefits before, or if they're looking for a competitor or a competitive quote, how are they going to do that? They're going to Google it. But the things they're going to Google at the very beginning, this discovery phase, this know phase, is know as in KNOW. They want to know, they want to get answers. That content that they're looking for is very, very different than the content they're going to be looking for at the try phase, where they want to understand, well, I've gone through the know, like, trust. Now I'm at the try phase. I'm almost ready to press play with this company. But buyer's remorse is a real thing. How can I protect myself from that? How do I know this is the best decision possible? How can I try these guys out, in essence? So that's where, case studies and giving people free consultations and all of that type of content, or a webinar where you're delivering expertise and authority so that they can start to try that on and say, yeah, no, I like this company. I think they're the right guys for us. And reviews, testimonials, all that kind of stuff. So, so understanding the intent of their search at each of those phases is really powerful, so that you can then modify, customize, formulate the content in such a way that it meets their need at that phase. I would say to future-proof yourself, you should already be doing this, because this is kind of old news now, but you'd still be riding the crest of this wave. And that's creating video content to go along with your other types of content, your long form content. Video content is huge. Our populations have become more and more video consumers. This isn't the best way people retain information, but this is one of the highest forms of content consumption. So it's really important to not ignore video creation. And then, of course, as we've mentioned before, one way to future-proof yourself is really understanding and staying on that cutting edge of, where are my customers, clients, or patients? Where do they spend time? And that people's behavior changes over time. So don't assume because you were on Facebook 10 years ago that that's still the best place to reach your audience, especially when you're talking consumer sales, like dentist sells to consumers, and consumers are constantly, evolving in the different generations that they're in, and those different generations are often on different platforms. The last part about future proofing, I would say, is say I'll use the example of a dentist a little bit longer. Say you want to make sure that you're not ignoring your future patients. In fact, you're trying to lay the groundwork of being the preferred dentist to the next generation. And so all of the data, all of the buzz you're hearing is that TikTok is the platform, the stats support it, that the next generation is spending time on. Well, then you should be creating short video content to try to reach that generation. And you should be posting it on TikTok, because that's what they are. But you should never ignore where the existing people are that you're connecting with. Don't essentially, throw the baby out with the bathwater. You want to make sure that you're reaching all of the different people that are existing customers as well as future customers, and preparing your business to create that content on an ongoing basis. And lastly, I would just say, because of the wave of artificial intelligence, AI, I would be cautiously exploring what options are available, because ChatGPT has gotten all of the press, and it may or may not be the tool that will help you create content well. It's not always right. You gotta go into it with the right viewpoint and the right expectations that the content that's created on any AI platform needs to be reviewed by a human that understands the topic, right? But where I see AI at this point being really, really valuable is that it can help you in the creative or iterative creation of content, because we all know that if you've ever written content, if you've ever produced a video, rarely is the first iteration of that content, the first draft of it, rarely is that the one that you're going to actually publish, because it's not great, right? You've gotten your ideas down on paper, or you've done an initial video. It's raw. It needs some work. It needs clarity brought to it, or conciseness. Maybe you missed some elements of the topic. And so that's where if you're an expert in a field, you could go to ChatGPT as a dentist. You could type in, write an outline for a blog post on dental implants, the benefits of dental implants, and it will give you a great outline. But truthfully, it's just gathering data from all over the place. And sometimes we, as experts who are using these tools and have been longer than most of the population on the planet, understand that sometimes there's garbage in, garbage out. Sometimes it can get the positives and the negatives wrong, meaning it might frame something as a benefit when in fact it's a threat or it's a risk. So all of these things need to be taken into account. And then once whether you use the AI tool to help build out the long form content, man, you better get in there and you better rewrite that content as a human, because it can get it so far. But if a human is reading AI content, oftentimes it's lacking in a lot of ways. It comes across very sterile, very clunky. Oftentimes there's a lot of repetition that no human writer would probably ever write, because it's just built into us as writers that we don't repeat ourselves over and over and over and over again. So those are a few tips to future proof for yourself. I'm really interested to know if there's anything else that you would add to that, Paul, from a future proofing your content creation ideas.
Yeah, one of the points that you brought up was that garbage in, garbage out. It's an algorithm, and it's depending on your prompts to generate that content. And kind of reminds me, one of the plugins we use is Yoast. You do too. And I remember
We've moved on.
What's that?
We moved on to a different one a few years ago, but we know Yoast really well as well. Yep.
Oh, are you using All-in-One or Rank Math?
Rank Math. Yep.
Yeah, we looked at that as a sidebar, and apparently in the background they're doing basically the same thing. Rank Math just gives you a little more data than Yoast.
For sure. Oh yeah, it's just a tool.
It's
a tool to guide
in a different way. But
absolutely. Yeah, and we just found that Rank Math for our team, like I would just say it's a one tool. I would say Yoast is a very mature tool. I would say Rank Math is too, and they both do exactly the same. The end result that you're trying to produce is the exact same. Rank Math just had a more intuitive interface for our team in order to know if we've got everything the way we need it in order to help SEO optimize content. That's the only reason why we've
used both.
Yeah,
but
they're both good tools.
Where I was going with it is that people think one of the things you do with both those tools is you put in a keyword.
Yeah.
Well, I remember back a while back, I was having a conversation with someone, and I won't say who it was, but they thought that
was it me, Paul?
No, but they thought when you put that keyword in there, you were telling Google that this is what you wanted this content to rank for. It's like, no, you're not telling Google anything. You're telling this piece of software, and this is where I was going with when you said about the prompts and the garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah.
You're saying, you're telling this piece of software, here's what I want this content to rank for, and it runs its algorithms and says, okay, you should do this and that and that.
Yeah.
And then it gives you a score. Well, you can change that score by changing the keyword that you put in there. Okay,
Yeah.
it's almost like a game. All right, and it's that same kind of thing with these AI tools, that the prompts that you use is going to determine what content is generated. So if you're using a crappy prompt, you're
Yeah.
going to get bad output.
Hey, Paul, can I just like what you said about Yoast or Rank Math or any of the tools? I mean, those are the top ones, right? But I can't tell you the number of times, and maybe you've experienced this too, where you guys win a new client because they've been investing in SEO for years, but their rankings are horrible. And then you do an audit on their website and you look at, okay, I don't know what it could be, a dentist, could be a plumber, could be anybody, because we've seen it in all those circumstances where they use the tool. So a Yoast, usually they've used Yoast, they enter the keyword, but every single page they're trying to rank for the same keyword, or it's a keyword that nobody searches for. So, just to reiterate that, like, the tool's just a tool. You have to have the expertise and the knowledge, and you have to do the hard work of doing keyword research to understand, well, if I'm a plumber, how are people actually searching for my service in my area, in order for me to then go through the effort of creating all that content? Because if you don't do that part, you will never be strategic. You will never rank well.
True. Yeah, you have to understand how these things work, and that's
Yeah.
I think that's where this disconnect or this misunderstanding comes in a lot of times, is that you have to understand what's going on. And that's the reason I brought that up, is
Yeah,
that
good point.
there's this veneer of knowledge that people have, and you can go online and, the data-driven world we live in is a double-edged sword. You can go online and find anything, and there's a
Yeah.
lot of bad information out there. And if you don't have that expertise, you don't know if what you're reading is accurate or not.
Yep. Yep. I love the way you differentiated that as well, that the tools, you even have to understand, like if you're on the excuse me, got a frog. If you're on the fringe and you think, hey, we can bring SEO in-house and we can do a better job than the experts, or whatever is your foundational belief system that's guiding you into this decision to have non-experts try to do
It's
SEO.
usually money.
Yeah, and it makes sense. I get it. I get it. We're both, as small businesses, you gotta be smart about where your investments are in order to get the best return on investment. But man, SEO has the opportunity to bring one of the highest returns of investment into your business from a marketing standpoint. And you have to understand the difference between strategies and tools and how to leverage the tools. And yeah, I just loved it that you brought that up, because I've seen it so often that the tool is misunderstood to be the worker, when in fact the tool is just really a form of, it's a feedback mechanism to say, hey, for what you put in here as your keyword or keyword phrase, you need to do the following to make better, right? It's not magic. Well, hey, Paul, creator-led SEO is kind of what we were just talking about. I'm not sure how relevant this is for our audience, but it's something to be aware of. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, and the thing is, I think it should be called influencer-led SEO.
Mm-hmm.
And we're
Mm-hmm.
just going to have to see where this goes. And it may never be all that relevant for small businesses in a local market. But
Yep.
really, and this will be a short answer, which is good because we're coming up on an hour here. But really, what it comes down to is you have influence out there in the social media space, okay, whatever that social media may be. And if you can align, if your business values, your brand, if they align with the values of this influencer, you can kind of align your content with them and link out to them, and you can even reach out to them and see if you can get a link back or some kind of shout out because they are influencers.
Yeah.
So, and that can really help with your SEO. But like I said, for a small local business, I don't know how much it's going to matter. But if you're a regional or a national business, it can definitely have an impact on your business and your rankings. So it's just,
and in essence, it's a little bit more complex and involved, but it's really just kind of like another form of a backlink play to help your SEO, right? It's not the whole SEO effort. It's just something that can augment it to help you rank better or send additional signals to Google about your authority because you share some of their authority juice with you.
yeah, and you know, we've done that on this podcast when we have different guests that, you
Yeah.
know, that are influencers and have big followings, and just having them as a guest on this podcast, you know, help because they let their audience know about the podcast.
Yeah.
So
And that's why other people want to be on our podcast as well, right? We might have a bigger following than them, so they want to be on ours as well.
right. So yeah, like I said, that's something we're gonna have to. It's fairly well. It's not new from the sense that people want to align with influencers, but
Yeah.
using as an SEO kind of thing is fairly new. So it's going to be interesting to see where that goes and how it plays out.
Yep. Awesome. Should we wrap up, my friend?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. So thank you to our listeners for joining us today. Thank you, Paul, for bearing the lion's share of the work today since Ken couldn't be with us. But join us next week where we'll cover another really valuable topic. And please share this with other people. And remember to keep calm and mark it on, folks.